you need to get off of here to survive. And instead she goes, I need to know what happened. And this is like a classic horror problem where you have people doing completely illogical things where they go, I would rather die just to know the answer to this than run away and survive like a normal human being with a functioning brain would do. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Lost Plot, the podcast by storytellers for storytellers so that we can tell better stories ourselves. As always, I'm your host, Maverick, and today I'm coming in solo for a quick podcast episode to just go over a recent release, Ash, the 2025 American science fiction horror thriller film, which was written by Joni Remler and directed by The Flying Lotus. So, this one I didn't think deserved a full-on podcast episode, complete with, your co-host and everyone like that, getting into the weeds about the analysis, but I thought that this film, as a recent release, deserved at least a quick analysis on what was great about it, what isn't, give it the basic understanding. So, just going into those basic takeaways, my first thoughts on this film was that they are really trying to do something with this movie, Ash, similar to John Carpenter's The Thing, right? This is one of those alien movies where they go, oh my goodness, what is this infection? Where is it coming from? Who's infected? Things like that. And, you might make the argument that some of that's a little more nuanced than what I'm saying if you watch the film, but in all honesty, I think it's pretty obvious. I think that the efforts they were trying to convey, right, were very much, they were trying to play this mysterious game with this, and there was too much that was very clearly indicating in one direction that you couldn't help but infer the results that were true, right? And so we'll get into that in a second, but if you're curious and want to know what Ash is about, I will give you the spoilers right now. So if you actually want to watch the film, watch it first, then come back and listen to this. Now, getting into the summary. It starts off with this woman, Rhea, waking up in a planet called Ash, where Earth is trying to establish a new colony, because Earth is going to crap, as per usual with a science fiction film like this, where they're trying to colonize a new planet. She wakes up and she finds out she has amnesia, and has these flashbacks occasionally to her co-workers on this colony dying in terrifying ways, more or less. So she goes on this mission alongside this guy named Brian, who comes down from the colony, basically spaceport from the sky that basically helps to boost the signal to Earth, comes down to help her figure out what's going on and to get her back to Earth. And they try to together figure out what happened before they leave. Turns out, at the end of the film, she was the one who was infected by an alien and helped to kill most of the people that were part of her crew, along with other people who were also infected by the alien. Also turns out Brian is a figment of her imagination. He doesn't actually exist. He had already died previously in the film. So, movie ends with her getting uninfected through one of the robots that helps medical bots on the colony, and then she flies off into space to get to the orbital colonizing booster ship, or boosting center. Anyways, that's the film. That's what goes on. As you can see, the plot is pretty straightforward, and a lot of it relies on mystery. Now, there were three things in this film that I thought really caused the problems that we see in this film significantly. One is that this is a film that primarily was driven by mystery, right? Or they at least attempted to. They wanted you to wonder, why did this all happen, right? Are we curious about how Rhea got into this situation? That's what we're trying to figure out. That being said, that mystery was very hard to continue to build suspense with when it was very obvious that something had to have happened with Rhea, right? For starters, she's getting these flashbacks where you see people's faces melting off, where you see people's faces morphing to a more alien-like form. And so it indicates from the start that there's some sort of alien interaction which is causing these people to die. Now, turns out, post this, right, you find out that some of those flashbacks weren't entirely true to what happened, but regardless, the film is indicating from the start that aliens are involved in this situation and that they're infecting people, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that she is the only human left on the colonizing ship, or on the colony, which begs the question, if everyone else is dead and someone was infected, who's infected? Turns out she's infected, right? It's a very reasonable conclusion to be drawn to, and it turns out that is what it actually happened in the film. And so if you're trying to build a film around mystery and curiosity, you need to have some sort of red herrings, right? Some sort of elements that make you indicate, oh, maybe it could be this instead or that instead, and draws the audience toward these other potential conclusions, which leads the audience to not truly knowing what occurred or what could have occurred. In this situation, there's only one person alive until Brian shows up later, right? But he wasn't there during this whole fight. Which means, basically, Raya has to be infected. And that's what you get in this film. So I think that if you're trying to build a film based off of mystery, you can't do that if you only have one possible conclusion to be drawn to from a logical standpoint. So that was the first problem with that. Second off, like I said, right, they're trying to use mystery to build up suspense, but there's no red herrings, there's no uncertainty. Two, because there's no red herrings, there's no uncertainty, it's hard to build the tension from there, right? So not only do we know what's going to happen, there's no surprises, there's also no ability for us to be invested into this. This comes to a really big issue, especially because when they're trying to build the mystery around the villain, right, specifically the aliens, they're trying to use the mystery to add tension, to be like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? And the aliens, if you already know that they're the bad guy, and all you're trying to do is figure out where they are, and you as the audience already are inferring that they've infected the main character, it's, once again, hard to build that mystery. So no red herrings in regards to what's going on with the main character. Also, didn't effectively, as a result, build up the danger or threat of the aliens themselves, right? So that's two of the problems with this mystery aspect of it. Third is that they were so focused on trying to build mystery on something that wasn't mysterious that they didn't actually build any motivation for the primary character. So Raya, all we know about her, or Rhea, is that she's this person who's curious, right? She wants to know about the world and why things are going on. And for most of the film, it's like, okay, everyone's dead. You need to get off of here to survive. And instead she goes, I need to know what happened. And this is like a classic horror problem where you have people doing completely illogical things where they go, I would rather die just to know the answer to this than run away and survive like a normal human being with a functioning brain would do. So in this case, you see that playing out. I don't think that they have a lot of empathy or understanding around why she is taking the action she is doing, or why we should care for her as audiences. We just see her as this person who needs to know the truths of the universe, right? Now, they build some justification for this in the film when you find out that the aliens know how to terraform planets. And that's significant if humanity is going to survive, right? So there is some motive at that point, but that's like halfway through the film. We have a reason for her to actually be curious and to actually know the truth of what's going on. Spoiler alert, she doesn't learn that anyways. But in addition, it just wasn't, I wasn't invested in her as a character, and they didn't give me any reason to be invested in her as a character. And the simple idea that being curious is a reason is a load of crap. So, anyways, that's what we got with this film. 3 problems with it. 2 of them having to do with trying to build too much into mystery, and the third one having to do with this idea that they didn't build a compelling protagonist to begin with, which is significant when you only have like 6 characters in the film. So, that's what you got with Ash. And once again, like, another thing about this film, Ash is the name of the planet, but you don't even know that unless you hear it in passing partway through the film. And so you might sit there and go, why is this film called what it is? I don't know. So, that's what we got. I personally gave the film a 2.45 out of 9, right? So pretty low, and there's a good reason for that, because this is a B film at best. It's really got a lot of problems with it. It got nominated by the Audience Award at the SXSW Film Festival, so that doesn't really mean anything to me, but clearly the audience were trying to give it some kudos. I don't think it deserved that. I think that has a lot of problems, and those are exactly what I laid out today. The only thing I really enjoyed about this film that I thought was clever was in the post-credits scene, and that is when Rhea gets the alien pulled out of her brain, right, extracted, and then she flies off into space to go back to Earth and to the orbital command center, and then back to Earth to report on what happened here at Ash. And when she gets up to the orbital command center, as the ship is docking, the camera zooms out and you see the aliens have already infected the orbital command center, right? I thought, okay, that was a clever move at the end where it's like, oh, they can't escape. She's already doomed. They've gotten it there already, right? I thought, all right, I'll give them kudos for that. That was an interesting little twist at the end. Classic horror-esque, you can't escape us type thing, but it was still enjoyable, and that was pretty much the only thing I thought was clever about this film. So that's my thoughts on Ash. If you want to see more about this, go ahead and check out the other podcast episodes that we have where we go more in depth on some of these other films that we watch and see, what makes a film great, what doesn't make a film great, why are there compelling stories, why aren't they compelling, and hopefully you got a little taste of that today. So that's the pod. We hope you all enjoyed. We will be back, as we always are, next week. We'll see you all then.